Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Fitton Center for Creative Arts. My name is Ian Mackenzie Thurley. I'm the Executive Director here, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to Celebrating Self here on a beautiful afternoon here in downtown Hamilton, Ohio. I've just waited for the tornado sirens practice to stop. For those who are here on Monday afternoon, we know what that sounds like. Well done to my staff for getting downstairs into the basement very, very quickly and taking a few members of the public that are in the galleries along with them. So these are important things. I would like to start with a huge congratulations. Our speaker last month, which was Woody Keon Jr. from the from the Underground Railroad Museum in Cincinnati and Freedom Center, have just won Best Museum in these United States. So I don't know if that means a Pulitzer for you next, Kari, but I will say in late 2019, we did do a whole thing about what would happen if there was a global pandemic. So we're ahead of the curve. Come speak at the Fit and your dreams will come true. With all of that, I would like to thank the Ohio Arts Council, the Hamilton Community Foundation, the City of Hamilton, and Artsway for their incredible and continued sponsorship and support of the Fitton Center. Thank you very much. To Kathy Klink, who is our series sponsor this year for all of our Celebrating Selves, thank you so much, and thank you for bringing a great crowd of people with you on the table. To our friends at TV Hamilton, thank you for the media support. We certainly appreciate it. You can get that live right now on their Facebook channel and on YouTube and also on Spectrum as well. And yes, we'll take applause. And of course, last but certainly not least, to our friends at Two Women in a Kitchen. What an incredible salad bar today. Isn't that fantastic? I am always happy when the chicken salad and the croissants are rolling into the Fitton Center, to say nothing of the cookies. We really do appreciate it so very much. Lots to see and do at the Fitton Center. Coming up very soon on the weekend of March 17 and 18, the Cincinnati Ballet will be having a residency here in Hamilton for the very first time. And that will mean a Fitton Family Friday on the Friday night, which is sold out. During the Saturday, all day, if you have some budding or some experienced dancers, we will be doing workshops and events and classes of different levels. That's from little ones through to experienced young dancers, and they'll be available for only $5, those workshops and events. So if you have young dancers you'd like to get here and work with the Cincinnati Ballet down in our ballet studio, they would be most welcome. Please do book. And then on the Saturday night, the second company, CB2, will be performing here on the Fitton stage for the first time, and I think it's the first full performance of the Cincinnati Ballet ever in Hamilton, Ohio. So we're really excited about that weekend. That's the weekend of March 17 and 18 with the Cincinnati Ballet. Please grab your tickets. Yes, I'll take more applause. Moya's up the front. We're certainly very excited. This is our penultimate, second from last of our Celebrating Self series. And we're so excited to have our very own Poet Laureate of the state of Ohio. And I will say a huge happy birthday to the state of Ohio, 220 years old today. So there we go. I'd love to say I planned that and timed that and we had conspired, but I found that out this morning on Facebook. So, but I'll take it for the win. But so excited to have Kari here to come and speak with us and speak to us and bring us our words. I know Mark Motes, our writer in residence here at the Fitton Center, has been absolutely delighted with that. He lives and breathes the words for his career and every day, so we're really excited to have that. So without any further ado, you can hear less from me and more from her in these fantastic words. Ohio's Poet Laureate, Kari Gunter-Seymour.
I was 13. She was Barbie. Tight-waisted, pointy tatas, teensy purple pom-poms glued to sexy high-heeled slings. Ken and Madge, a glamorous seaside life splashed on the cover of every teen magazine in the A&P food store checkout line. I come from farm folk, short, stocky, built to dig a ditch, throw a bale. My mother bargained, lose 5 pounds, earn Barbie. Life blurred into a ragged routine, beef patties, cottage cheese, running the path from the barn to the woods. I passed out during gym class, my teacher furious to learn of my mother's arrangement. Barbie came to me, pasty pale, pouty-lipped, nose pugged in a stretchy, strapless, striped swimsuit that provoked the pink in my daddy's cheeks. No crease or fold, no nest of pubic wonder. She could not stand. Her arches cruelly vaulted. Gravity and her ginormous chesties face planting her without fail. She could not manage her white plastic sunglasses or floppy flowered hat. Her quarter-sized woven wicker beach bag forever slipping off her rock-hard plastic shoulder. One attempt to comb her sun-streaked coif and off popped her vacant head. Come haying season, I lost 5 pounds, throwing bales good as any of the boys. My new obsession? To insist ordinary things be somehow more. A brittle leaf laced in snow, the sugary smell of clover-filled pastures, my mother's voice, twanged and weedy, calling, "Caroline, don't you be late for supper." So hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. What a wonderful time I've had. I've been just treated like royalty the minute I stepped inside the city. So y'all know how to put it on really good. Thank you so much. It is a lovely city. I walked around this morning. It's full of so much art, and there's just a wonderful feeling, and people saying hello on the street. So y'all must be so proud to be from here. So thanks again for having me. And I want to thank Ian especially for his kindness, and his wife Kelly for feeding me last night. And it was wonderful. And he cooked it himself. Spring is just, now I think we're at 20 days away, right? And I guess I should mention to y'all, too, my little slide here says where I come from. It's pronounced Appalachia. How do y'all say it? How many say Lecha? Appalachia? Yeah. Well, there's linguistics. There's science behind it. And anybody above I-70, who grew up above I-70, says Lecha. So I have my own theory about that. So I think folks migrated out of the South and had to come north for work during the Great Depression and the war. And you got up there, and, a generation or two later, people started shaming y'all for your twang. So you just started making your vowels a whole lot longer. So you talk slower, and that A got real long. And there's nothing wrong with that. They're both absolutely perfect. But I just happened to say it, Latcha. So spring is about 20 days away. Thank you, Jesus, right? I mean, it's been kind of an odd winter, to say the least. We're still waiting for it, kind of, aren't we? Nice big freeze or snow or something to make it seem like we're really in Ohio. But I also think, and we were talking about this at our table, that we're still, as much as we're over the pandemic, and we know we're fine now, we know that we're going to do well, we're still kind of working through that. And Some of us lost loved ones, and some of us were ill, and so there's a lot wrapped up in that. And as this spring comes, I think we're all going to have a big sigh of relief. We're finally going to believe that we're free again. And I wrote this little poem in honor of that, and it's called Vernal Equinox, which is, the exact day of the first day of spring. I've been thinking about last times that I never knew were the last. Grandma cooing me unconscious, Daddy whistling me home to supper, my toddler's toothless grin, tiny fingers clenching wildflowers. The last time I prayed, desperate for those departed, how they flit ahead of us, flying. Tonight, the Big Dipper balances on its handle. Tepid tree frogs peep songs of resurrection. One morning soon, I'll eat a good breakfast, fill a water bottle, pack a book, walk the fence row into the holler, rest beneath the eagle's favored perch, shake off this inexplicable sadness. 2 cinder blocks where lungs ought to be. I'm going to let spring hold on to me for a while. So speaking of Appalachia, you all have figured out now, you hear that little bit of twang in my voice that comes from my relatives. My folks, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but my folks started out in Virginia. They came from Gloucester, England, and then did some traveling and ended up in Ohio. And there's so much negative media about Appalachia. You hardly ever hear the good stuff, right? You just hear the negative stuff. And we see pictures of the incredibly poor. And poverty isn't an Appalachian issue, it's a national issue, and one of great shame. And not us personally, but those who serve in our leadership in our country, I think, should be ashamed of the level of poverty in our country. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. But anyway, there's a lot of negative talk about Appalachia, and I like to have the opportunity to kind of stand up for that. And this is one of those poems that I share when I read nationally, and it's called To No One in Particular. I'm never happy to see summer go, earth stripped of its finest voice. I'm sitting outside in my heavy coat, porch light off. There is a full-on moon, no ambient distractions, the sky a Zion. I take solace in considering the age of this valley, the way water left its mark on Appalachia long before Peabody sunk a shaft. Chevron augured the shale, or ODOT dynamited roadways through steep rock. I grew up in a house where canned fruit cocktail was considered a treat. My sister and I fought over who got to eat the fake cherries. Standouts in the can, though tasting exactly like every other tired piece of fruit floating in the heavy syrup. But it was store-bought, like city folks. And we were too gullible to understand the corruption in the concept. Our mother's home canned harvests superior in every way. I cringe when I think of how we shamed her. So much here depends upon a green cornstalk, a patched barn roof, weather, the Lord, community. We've rarely been offered a hand that didn't destroy. Inside the house, the light bulb comes on when the refrigerator door is opened. My husband rummages a snack, plops beside me on the porch to wolf it down, turns, plants a kiss, leans back in his chair, says to no one in particular, a person could spend a lifetime under a sky such as this. He stands, bows, offers his hand, and sings. Buffalo gal, won't you come out tonight? Come out tonight. Come out tonight, come and dance with a man with a hole in his stocking. His knees are knocking, but his heels are rocking. Come dance with a man with a hole in his stocking. We'll dance by the light of the moon. Come and dance by the light of the moon. So I started to tell you about my daddy's people. I'm a 9th generation Appalachian. My daddy's people, John the third, and Johanna, there we go, came to this country from Gloucester, England, and they settled in Virginia, coal mining. But several generations later, my great-great-great-great-grandparents were tobacco farmers. And so my folks went from Virginia into North Carolina and then into South Carolina. And they went to a place called Wagner, South Carolina, that was renamed Guntersville because there were so many Gunters living there. So my great-great-great-great-grandparents decided Guntersville was way too crowded. And they heard about this opportunity for a new settlement called Aiken, South Carolina, which is now one of the largest cities in the United States, which is ironic because they left Wagner because it was too crowded. So when Aiken was celebrating their 150th anniversary of the founding, they had a brochure prepared, and in there was an excerpt about my great-great-great-great-grandmother. Her name was Patience. And this is what they had to say. She was a strong woman, stubborn, who drove one of the Conestoga wagons. She was chewing tobacco and smoking a corncob pipe. Tobacco farmers, they were wealthy. Not wealthy, but wealthy in tobacco. Her shoes were big and loose and rough, and she wore on her head that milliner's creation you call a poke bonnet. Now here's my favorite part. In spite of her gray hair, she looked brave enough to tackle a den of wildcats. Now you know where I get my sass, right? So actually, the sass didn't leave that generation. It didn't stay there because fast forward to my immediate aunts, my mother's people and my own aunts, during World War II, migrated to northern Ohio for work, to Warren, Ohio. And I have to tell you, they were farm women. And at that time, farm women didn't leave the farm unless they married a farmer and went to another farm. Or maybe, if they reached the terrible age of 26 or 27, spinster years, they might work for the church. So the fact that my aunts just took off and went to Warren, Ohio to find work has always really impressed me. And then I think about my great-great-great-great-grandmother who looked mean enough to tackle a den of wildcats. And then I decided I had to write a poem about sassy women. And then when I thought of sassy women, I thought of Dolly Parton, so there you go. So here's the poem. It's called Perfect Pitch. I rode middle school bound in the back seat of my aunt's station wagon, listened to her and Mama sing Jolene. Trading verses harmonizing on the chorus. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. A few years later, it was 9-5. They were fired up, and it was Dolly's doing. This was rural Ohio, the bottom lip of northern Appalachia, right shy of Perry Como country. The women in the family worked the TS trim factory, spitting out Honda car parts. Started out on the assembly line, worked their way up to paint, then detailing, then welding. The physical labor made their bodies strong, their future bright, and like Dolly, they weren't taking any guff. They learned early on about strikes and picket lines, how important it was to organize and vote. Brave women in the workforce, determined to see their daughters the hell out of factory row. I didn't know then that I was being raised by a feminist taking back her power. Like Dolly, my mama would never use that word, no matter how much she embodied it. She was proud to hang up her welder's helmet end of shift, pick up her paycheck, sing in the front seat of a station wagon with women she loved. So just for the record, my mama's people are Irish, McClures, from Northern Ireland, from Belfast. Anybody else? No Irish in this area? What are y'all? Do you know? German. German, yeah. You got stories too, I know you do. So my people went from Aiken, South Carolina, into Tennessee, and then my daddy signed up to fight in the war, and so his family ended up going to Warren for work as well, and my mama's people were there, and that's where my parents met, in Warren, Ohio. And so I'm going to share a poem I wrote for my daddy today. And it's called Tennessee Homeland because he was so proud of being from Tennessee. Daddy didn't like watermelon. He loved cantaloupe. Muskmelon, our family called it. I see some heads nodding. He would cut one in half, scrape the seeds, add a shake of salt inside the cavity, and feast. Daddy and his people grew up in Putnam County, barefoot, feral. He declared cantaloupes grown along the East Fork Obi River where the air sweats and melons swell like teats on a blue tick, the best on earth. Every year, late July, our family made the pilgrimage. He'd sniff and thump, roll them over, looking for blanched spots on their netted rinds, evidence of ripening in the field. Like all best things, they didn't last long. Come midsummer, I'll make my way to Putnam County. In spirit, my daddy will ride shotgun, shirt sleeves rolled, collar open, puffing a Parliament menthol. As I speed down old Highway 53, my mouth watering, the bottomland's calling me home. Thank you so much. Thank you. So these are all people from my area. My little poster here. That's my granddaughter in the corner there. I always like to point out she's a beauty. So now I wonder, how many of you know about coal mining in Ohio? There's one over there. Anybody else? Couple in the back. Yeah, Pauletta knows, of course. And Mark knows he's a journalist, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about it because when we think of coal mining, we think of West Virginia or Kentucky, don't we? But here's some facts. I'm going to read you some facts. In the late 1800s, Ohio became one of the largest coal-producing and coal-consuming states in the nation. Largest coal-producing and coal-consuming in the 1800s. In 1910, Ohio's coal workforce swelled to its greatest level of more than 50,000 miners employed in Ohio. A brotherhood and the United Mine Workers were formed during that time, one of the largest, strongest unions in the nation at that time. And it was because of the UMW that we have good, strong child labor laws in this country, which some of you may not have known that. And on November 5th, 1930, at the Sunday Creek Coal Company Poston Mine number 6 in Dover Township, Athens County, which is my county, 82 miners were killed. Most of the men lost in the disaster died from carbon monoxide asphyxiation, which means bad mining management. So now I know y'all want to know, why am I mentioning this fact? Why am I telling you all this sad news? Well, because if I don't, you're going to forget these men and their families as time goes on. Their sacrifices, what a dangerous job mining was. We'll be glad when we're done with mining, won't we? Every day down in the whole family holding their breath all day long, wondering if their loved one's going to come back up at the end of the day. You got to remember, too, the pay wasn't good. And a lot of them lived in company housing and had to shop at the company store with script that was issued to them so the mines could charge whatever they wanted for their living quarters and for any food or clothing or anything they bought from the company store. And we have to remember, Ohio's been keeping the lights on in this country for a very long time, Ohio mining. And there are still 93 working mines in Ohio, 93. That's kind of hard to believe, isn't it? And they're all in the Appalachian area of Ohio, which is a quarter of our state. And I think, too, we have to face it. Many times people look down on coal miners, and we should not. They've done so much for us. So with my own people coming to this country to mine, and then having known miners, my first husband was a coal miner. That's a whole nother story, but someday I'll tell you if you'd like to know. But I wrote a poem in honor of our coal miners. Because coal. The last stars arc, dim the sash. Wails, the pitch of a coal mine siren, quiver my temporal bone. A song to dig a hole. My grandfather's coal-caked, muscle and blood yoked to Peabody's script. Sinking shaft or pit, railroad cars tippled, cinder and soot smutting miles of track, valley fills steeped in acid spoil. 100 years of forest sheared. Pained as I am to reflect, my great-greats pigeon-toed, gap-mouthed, pondering how the hard-working find themselves both proud and begging, held fast like a flag that never waves. I mean, who hasn't rationalized themselves a noble son or daughter, their life tightly squeezed between two fists? Tonight, roaming the ether, I visit their graves. Blush pink peonies to decorate each stone. I sing. Fire in our hearts, fire in our souls, together forever, down in the hole, together forever, down in the hole. Thank you so much, everybody, truly. So another thing I wonder if you know about, and I can't lay claim to this, I don't have people in Kentucky per se, although I did write my grandmother into this poem, but your Cincinnati poet laureate, Pauletta Hansel, is from Kentucky. And I heard this story about the pack horse librarians. Anybody know about the pack horse librarians? Now I'm seeing some hands come up, yeah. Yeah, these were some incredibly brave women who took on the duties of bringing books, bringing literacy up into the mountains of Kentucky. And you have to remember, this was during the Great Depression, and there were no roads. The creek beds were the roads, and getting a wagon up through was pretty near impossible unless you had like 8 mules or oxen, and the weather was good, because if the weather was damp and it was raining, it would flood, and so you just couldn't get up in there. And so I wrote this poem in honor of these women who took on this chore of bringing books up into the mountains of Kentucky, and it's called Pack Horse Librarians. I mean no disrespect when I say, during the Great Depression, eastern Kentucky was a sundered area. Surrounded by mountains and waterways, no easy access in or out, nor any proper education until the WPA employed our grandmothers to pack saddle literacy to the underserved. This would be the only good thing Cole would do for Kentucky. Cole and the Presbyterians donating books and endowment, $28 a month, to any woman with a horse or a mule and the spunk to stand up for progress, brave the weather, backwaters and hollers, to deliver emancipation by means of bound dissertation. You need to understand, this was Appalachia, just before the war to end all wars. Only women of disrepute were considered working women by the church. Christian women labored in the kitchens and fields, birthed, prayed, died in them. Albeit, many Christian women were taught to read, if for no other reason than the Lord's word could be used to hold her back. But this was the New Deal, and all bets were off. Imagine my grandmother, top of her head barely level with the saddle's front rigging D, flaming red hair, a brand of sass all her own. Packing up at the Pine Mountain Settlement School, Harlan County, creek beds as roads, on foot, single file across crag and clifftop, sleeping in barns or lean-tos against the cold, deliberate as any lineman or mail carrier. Every treatise she carried, a nugget of gold inside those saddlebags. I love that story. I love that story. Thank you. Thank you. Yet today, the neatest thing about this was, as the women started receiving these books and just being so delighted, they started making their own books. So they wrote recipes and poems and stories on the feed sack cloth and would bind them with birch bark for the covers, and started sending those books back down to the libraries on the lowlands with the pack horse librarians. And a few of those books actually still exist today. And wouldn't you just love to get your hands on one of those and be able to look through one of those? Isn't that amazing? And the freedom that comes with education, right? And of course, that's why it's so important that every single person in America should be allowed to have an education. So I'm going to read another one that's just for fun. This kind of goes back to my great-great-great-great-grandmother when I thought about what a spunky woman she was. And I started thinking about, I wonder how she would be if she was living here today. What kind of woman would that saucy, spicy, sassy woman be? And so I wrote this poem in honor of her. And it's called, My Friend Lorraine Asks, Will I Go With Her to a Drag Show? Lorraine walks in wide strides and jumpy mountain rhythms. Heart of a star, rainwater rustic, she once painted a cardboard cutout of a cloud, and that cloud's sister sent to me as a postcard. Lorraine, can't you see her dancing in the rain? Never speaks of no one with disdain. Her lips have never touched champagne, and she don't mind it. You see, most nights I pray standing, worry about the weather when it presses hard from the south, walk beneath lightning to gather up chickens. But that night, the bourbon tasted like Kool-Aid. We drank 5 each. Together, becoming a twisted mirror of our better selves. During the finale, we hiked up our skirts, shimmied like a mash of malted barley and wild yeast. A rainbow of zinnias swayed the sidewalk, moonlit, as Lorraine and I tittered homeward, holding fast to one another. She reminds me how a seed case splits. It exposes its backbone, but also vulnerability. Christ Almighty, Lorraine says, we should all be throwing ourselves like we was seeds. I really have no doubt that that's exactly how she would be. I really do feel so. I had the most wonderful experience this past couple of years as the Poet Laureate. I know y'all are a little bit interested in that. And I got a $50,000 grant from the Academy of American Poets to put together, thank you, to put together an anthology that strictly focused on Ohio Appalachian poets. And this is a one-of-a-kind book because Ohio Appalachian poets have not really been recognized before as being Central Ohio Appalachian poets. We have the Southern Appalachians, we all know about that. We're starting to learn about the Northern Appalachians, but neither one of them really claimed us. They certainly didn't disrespect us, but we just weren't quite part of them. And I thought, okay, well, maybe we need to have something to prove that we're here and that we are very Appalachian. And so I was able to put together this lovely book, 134 poets who are associated with Ohio Appalachia. And again, I'm going to bring Paulette Hansel's name up again because she is in this book along with so many. Jackie Kelbley, you're in this book. I'm not seeing any others here today, but voices from all throughout Ohio and then as far away as Long Beach, California, down into Colorado, and of course down south into Tennessee, Kentucky, the Carolinas, all celebrating Appalachian Ohio. And if someone wasn't Appalachian, they were encouraged to write about our history or a location. You know, in our area, we have the beautiful Hocking Hills and the Moonville Tunnel. So anyway, it's a marvelous book, and I have some postcards on the table if any of you are interested in finding out more about it. But it's amazing, lovely. The work is just gorgeous. The other project that I do is called the Women of Appalachia Project, and this book is strictly women. And it covers all 420 counties of Appalachia are encouraged to submit, as well as those who have out-migrated. And this is the 14th year of my doing the Women of Appalachia project. There's also a fine art component, but this is the 8th volume of the anthology that I do every year. It also has fine art. Well, we'll see. Maybe I won't be showing you that today. Here's one. Throughout the book. And this is story, poetry, and song, and fine art. And I just take the greatest pleasure out of doing this project and bringing these voices out of the hollers and down from the mountaintops to share. We travel Ohio, West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky reading our work. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm pretty proud. And I'm going to read one out of this book, one of mine out. And it's called Land Lessons. She's lived here all her life, a gift to know this land, its seasons, tastes, smells, mindful of its wants, even knowing every acre was once taken by violence. We all have mortifications, history's footprints threaded among the trees. From the porch, sunset paints the surface of the pond, pregnant with twigs and twitchy insects. A Gaia of breeze strums shuffled reeds. She's had a good cry, one that could have left a lesser woman cornered. Later, she will wash the dishes, her face splashed and wakened. Remind herself how the heat of the evening warms the bones. Her life unremarkable as the housefly balanced on her dinner plate, rubbing its bristly, bowed legs together. So check in on your neighbors, friends. Not all of us are lucky enough to have lots of friends and get out a whole lot. So don't forget. Check in every now and then. Well, I think I have time for one more, right? Okay. So I'm going to give you this one because I know you all probably have lots of questions and I want to answer them. So I leave you with, this is kind of like a prayer or a blessing. It's called The Sense of One's Place. I worry over how to dress in this world where the shield we are given as a child does not protect. Our cinched belts tugged tight. Everyone is doing trigger warnings now. And there are words I've had to step away from. Nights I could not sleep from careless use. Calling out to shadows as though impressions at tight right angles could be woven into reason. Oh. But outside, under midnight's glitter burlesque, coyote music tempers moon's heavy breath. Sometimes stars draw lines so perfect, they carve my name. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you very much, Kari. I know we have some questions, but I'd like to start. Obviously, poetry is where the money is. That's what all the kids say. How does one become the poet laureate of the good state of Ohio?
I don't know that I'm the best example of that because it still seems like a miracle to me. But there is a process. There is the Ohio Arts Council shepherds this process, and it comes out of their office, the call. The new call should be out by July, I hope. You can nominate yourself, or you can nominate someone else. So that's nice to be able to have that ability. They ask, the technical part is they ask you to provide a manuscript of your poems, so they want to read what you write. They also ask that you provide a vita, of course, like you would for any other job, so you have to get your resume all spruced up and ready to go. And then they ask you to choose a service or a project that you might want to do for the state of Ohio. My project for the state of Ohio was to work with incarcerated teens and adults and women in recovery facilities. So that has been my underlying focus throughout the past, this is going on 4 years. And I've been in and out of the Ohio prison systems via Zoom over the last several years. And it has been some of the most rewarding work I've ever done. You only have to spend a little bit of time with folks, and you just realize, as I shared with Mark, you understand that but for the grace of God, we could all be there. And, you know, there's lots of domestic violence, there's lots of poverty. You realize lots of people were not really given the tools they needed to get a proper education. And these are all things that our Ohio prisons are trying to provide now. And it's encouraging because if they're bringing in the poets, something's happening, right? I mean, and I'm just really happy about that. So the rest of the process is, though, they go through every application. And I know they do this very thoroughly. They vet it down to, I think they started with 10, had everyone come in for interviews, and then they choose the top 3 to 5, and that goes to the governor's office, and Governor DeWine selected me. And then I think probably due to COVID, because my first term, I basically was sitting at my computer visiting everybody, you know, over the Zoom, reappointed me and gave me this opportunity to actually be able to travel the state and meet with many fine folks just like yourselves. So I would encourage anybody, obviously whatever age, right? Because I'm not a spring chicken by any means. If you would like to do this kind of work, I encourage you to nominate yourself or have someone nominate you. I really do.
Thank you. Question right here.
Thank you for sharing your heart and your soul with us today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, thank you. Could you share your thoughts of the relationship between poetry and the visual arts, perhaps including photography?
Mm-hmm. Well, you might be interested to know that my my undergrad degree is in graphic design and my master's is in commercial photography. I am not an academic poet, though I have attended lots of workshops and readings and read a lot of books. But when people ask me, I say, well, photograph is a moment in time, right? And that's a poem. And then graphic arts is about organizing information. You want people to see this first, this second, this third. That's a poem. So I think there's a huge connection between poetry and the visual arts. And I know lots of people who the only writing they do is looking at a piece of artwork and then they write a poem because they're so inspired by it. And then I've seen the opposite happen. I would give someone a poem and they would shoot a photograph or do a painting or a collage. So I think they're hand in hand. I think all the arts are. And I think some people make the mistake of thinking poetry isn't a fine art. Poetry is a fine art, just as painting, photography, dance, film. We are so lucky to have all these marvelous arts. Are you a photographer? I am. Yay!
Kent was actually our curator here for Photo Focus,
Wonderful.
working with Kat Mayhew, so an incredibly successful exhibition here at the Fitton Center this year.
Wonderful. We'll have to get together. Anybody else?
Moved into silence. I'm going to come over to you. Here comes the art teacher.
But I never ask questions. So with all the hints, are you an OU grad?
Yes, I am. Both degrees, actually, because what happened was I got my undergrad. I was a single mother. I left the holler. My marriage didn't work out. I literally left the holler. That's the coal miner story. Came to Athens, Ohio, which wasn't that far from the holler. Found my way into OU with lots and lots of help from just amazing mentors. And got a job at OU, which never happens. They usually don't want to hire their own. You know, if you've graduated there, they want people from away. And then about 10 years later, I decided I should get my master's because that's one of the perks. And so I did. I'd gotten a DSL camera, so I didn't have to buy film. And I thought, why shouldn't I take photography? I love photography. And I did, and I got a master's in photography at OU. Yeah.
It was always a strong major there anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. One of the first stories we heard going to OU back in the 60s was about the coal mine
Disaster.
organizing and the history of it, and then, you know, the rape of the landscape, and got to see the end of that, which now we can drive over there and see green grass and, you know, the recovered land. But
Right.
I still remember those giant earth movers.
And you know what? The bucket, one of the big buckets is still there to
Isn't that
put it into
amazing?
perspective.
Yeah.
And so if y'all want to visit, it's really kind of amazing. I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. You know, legislation was passed to force the coal companies to reclaim that land that they had completely devastated.
Here's one with an accent like mine.
Okay. And this is your wonderful mama, yeah?
Yes. As an immigrant, I didn't realize that Appalachia was in Ohio. So I'm sure everybody else knows exactly where it all is, but would you mind just explaining what part of Ohio the Appalachia
Sure.
is?
So I'm going to turn my back to you because if this is Ohio, Appalachia's right down through here and then down into Tennessee. So literally about a quarter of the state on the eastern side is Appalachia proper.
That's a bit like in Australia where we've got the Great Dividing Range coming down the east coast of Australia. Would that be about the same?
I would think it would be.
It's
by the
all
way you're
mountainous. Yes.
We don't have a whole lot of mountains in Ohio, as you know, but there's some good foothills along the way.
It doesn't have to be a mountain to be Appalachia.
Right.
Ah.
Right.
Ah.
And I think sometimes that's part of the confusion, sure. But I loved you sharing that story. Thank you for letting us know about Australia.
Any other questions? Look at them all stunned into silence. Oh, one here.
What's next?
Ah, well, I'm heading out to the AWP conference next week, so I'll be very busy there. I go to a lot of conferences. I have 2 conferences back to back. I'm doing a poetry contest for Ohio prisons. There are 18 Ohio prisons involved in a poetry contest that I'm holding, and winners will receive certificates, and the grand prize winner will receive some money for the commissary, a certificate, and a visit from me, which I didn't think would be a big deal, but turns out it is. So I will go into the winning prison and meet with everyone who participated in the classes and spend time there, and we'll read and maybe do a workshop. And then, of course, I have lots of readings and workshops lined up, but that's over the next couple of months. I have a new book coming out December or January from Eastover Press.
So if you would share, as we talked about at our table here, this is Bengal country,
and there might be a famous quarterback from Athens, and you have a little bit of a connection, maybe.
I do. Joey's from Athens County, of course, and I wish I'd brought the poem. I was the Athens Poet Laureate when Joe won the Heisman Trophy, and if y'all don't know that story, when he got up to accept the award, he talked about the poverty in Athens County, and it's below the national average. Well, it was. And then Joe's friend Will Draybolt put up a fundraiser to, and Will thought, oh, we'll get $1,000 or something, it'll be great. Ended up over $500,000. And so I wrote a poem in honor of Joe, and this was at near the end of December, and they were getting ready to take the fundraiser down, and it hadn't reached $500,000 yet. It was maybe 40,000 or so short. And so I posted the poem in my local newspaper. Oh, Pauletta, of course, has it. And thank you, Pauletta. Yeah. And so it put it up over the $50,000. It brought in the rest of the money because it went viral. I didn't mention that. Like over 100,000 people saw the poem, and it went viral. And I'm so proud of him because he could have just got up there and taken his award like anybody else. And he is a really good young man. I get a little teary-eyed when I think about it. So, okay, here's it's still, I can't move it, Pauletta. Oh, there we go. Okay. It's called Go Joe. Until you fed your kids Kraft mac and cheese from the marked down bin at the dollar store, for the 6th time in 2 weeks, made with water instead of milk, worried sick about what's happening to their insides, a dented can of carrots past the expiration date of luxury. Until you've worked 2 jobs and still can't climb above the food stamp line, never mind proper heating or running water, and you've put your 6-year-old to bed hungry again, wondering if there's any way you can take on a 3rd job and still see your kids. Until your daughter asks to pack her lunch because she's made fun of for being subsidized, so in desperation you take time off work to stand in the food pantry line in the cold, children in tow, only to be informed it was a tough week for the pantry too. Until you've put your children on the school bus dressed in mended clothes from the new to you, sized for children meant to be more filled out, and they're labeled white trash. And no amount of scrubbing can remove that stain, and dreams of college remain just that. Until a boy from your neighborhood picks up a football and throws it so far, thousands of people notice, and thousands more will eat high on the hog because the proof of a person lies in their honor. And glory rests not in the moment, but extends itself in supplication. Go, Joe! Thank you.
What an incredible way to end for us today. Thank you so much, Kari. We really do appreciate you and your words here in Hamilton and at the Fitton Center today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Our Poet Laureate for the state of Ohio on its birthday, Kari Gunter-Seymour. We appreciate it. Thank you. We still have some more things coming up for next month. We will have our very final Celebrating Self, where we celebrate the local stars of reality television. We have one with us here already in preparation, coming from The Amazing Race. We'll have a little Shark Tank and Jeopardy. So if you're a fan of reality television and game shows, this is the place to be, and there's some people you can see and hang out with. As I mentioned, we do have the ballet coming in on the 17th and 18th. Don't miss that with the Cincinnati Ballet here all weekend here at the Fitton Center. Please put your hands together again one more time for Kari Gunter-Seymour. She will be available down here. You can purchase copies of her anthologies of poems, and she can obviously sign those for you as well. I will be in touch with the Poet Laureate of California about my Josh Allen poem. It better be as good as that. We'll be having that. So thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you at the Fitness Center again very soon.